All right, here we go. It's BV Today, News Radio KKOB, Brandon Vogt, producer Mike Vitale. You know, this audience is pretty good at cracking cases. And so is our next guest. And he's in the middle of it, too. You know Brett Kokinadis. He's the first vice chairman of the GOP in Santa Fe County. He also runs the PAC Stop MLG. And I think I mentioned this either on this show or another show I was on. It's out in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. It's out in far east Torrance County, I do believe. And I think it's in the westbound lane on I-40. There's a giant billboard of Karen Bedonie. All right, if that name rings a bell, during the big free-for-all when candidates were announcing, what they were running for, Bedonie was a Republican. And then I think shortly before the convention, and Brett could probably fill in the blanks here, shortly before the convention, she decided, no, I'm not a Republican, I'm a Libertarian. And I think we even had her on the show because we featured all the candidates that were running for governor. And then I saw this big billboard, a couple of months ago, and I thought, where'd she come up with the money here to get a billboard like that? I guess Brett Kokinadis also had those same thoughts, and he went even deeper in figuring all this stuff out. Brett, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Brandon. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah. So when did you become aware of this billboard? When do you think it went up?
Well, we knew about it for a while, and there's actually multiple billboards up in New Mexico. There's another one on I-25.
Okay.
That we're tracking down too. But, we saw it. We saw it on I-40 like most people see billboards as they're driving around to different events and whatnot. And what sparked our attention on the billboard is, we monitor everybody's campaign finance information reports very closely.
Yeah.
Republicans, Democrats, and in Karen's case, Libertarian. And one of the paid for by disclaimers on there said, paid for by private persons of New Mexico.
Private persons.
Yeah, which in itself, calling your entity private persons of New Mexico is not unlawful.
No.
As long as it's properly registered with the Secretary of State as a committee, a PAC, or independent expenditure.
Yeah.
In which case, they're not. And furthermore, what we saw was that the Bedonie campaign was posting all of these internet-style advertisements on both her official and personal social media with the same disclosure. So it took us a while. It took us a lot of effort. There's no disclaimer on the board as far as who the operator was of the billboard. So we had to go through quite some hurdles to identify the operator, and that included going after parcel ownership to figure out who owned the land, contacting the owner, figuring out what billboard company was operating it, and then asking for them to cooperate with our private investigation, which they didn't want to do.
No.
So we ended up filing a complaint with the Secretary of State and the New Mexico State Ethics Commissions, not just for the billboard, but for a variety of other suspected violations as well.
All right, so what do you think, what's the biggest violations here? Is it because, it's the group is private persons. Do they have to identify themselves?
Yes. So under New Mexico state law, any time that an individual or group of people spend more than $3,000 in a state race, they are required by law to report the source of the funds, as well as what expendable items they've purchased on behalf of the candidate. If you download all of the 72 pages of the original complaint, which we've been amending as time has progressed with new information on a various multitude of other issues that have been discovered and reported to us from defectors of Karen's campaign, this includes a variety of things of not reporting in-kind donations.
Okay.
So the candidate has a responsibility to know that, if there's activity being done on their behalf, whether that's, paying for a fundraiser event, coming in and doing performances, painting a mural on the side of a building, all of those are perfectly legal.
Yeah, so
they are reported.
Yeah, so, have you've been in contact with the campaign, but have you had a chance to talk to Karen Bedonie personally about this?
No. I have not talked to Karen directly about it. Karen has taken the liberty of encouraging others online, it seems, to, attack me and retaliate because of these complaints.
Yeah.
And they'll put out statements, including YouTube's, talking about how the Republicans are attacking the Bedonie campaign. They're talking about how we're violating or infringing on people's First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
And that's not the case at all.
Yeah, keep in mind, she was a Republican, five months ago, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she didn't qualify as a Republican in the primary. They'll, again, statements about how the Republican Party changed the rules, which is completely untrue. The matter of the fact is that the Karen Bedonie for campaign could not obtain the number of qualifying signatures required to be considered a candidate under statute for the gubernatorial election on the Republican primary.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same case we challenged back early on with Stephen Garrett about her Republican nomination position.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
By our audit, she did not have enough to qualify. There was a technicality in the lawsuit that prevented the case from moving forward, and Karen remained on the ballot.
Yeah.
Every candidate in Stop MLG, our political action committee, has gone after the governor as well for violating campaign finance law.
Yeah.
So, Karen can misdirect, the campaign can misdirect, her attorneys can redirect. But the point of the fact is that if you're raising or spending money, you have to report it.
Yeah.
And we've had numerous people come forward, Brandon, that are telling us every day about more and more potential violations of Karen and her campaign. It comes down to this.
Yeah. What happened when you went all the way to Secretary of State's office? Did you get a response from Maggie Toulouse-Oliver?
On this particular issue, there are two open action items. One, which Karen's attorney has responded to, which is a direct inquiry from the New Mexico State Ethics Commission, who has joint jurisdiction over the issue with the Secretary of State's office. The Secretary of State's office also opened up their own internal inquiry directly to the committee, asking for them to essentially come into voluntary compliance, which I don't see how that's possible. We have not received communication from the Secretary of State on that issue, and I believe they have until August 29th to respond back to the State Ethics Commission's inquiry to the Secretary of State's office on this issue.
Yeah, and the company that put this billboard up, Private Persons of New Mexico, you found out they weren't even registered in the state, right?
Yeah, they're not a business in the state. They're not registered as any type of political entity as required by law with the Secretary of State's system. The billboard operator itself has now updated their profile online to say that they are permanently closed.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if that's just a Google hiccup or if indeed that's the case. But what it comes down to, Brandon, is you have a candidate who couldn't qualify on the Republican side. Obviously, they're having some difficulties, just like Governor Grisham, with adhering to campaign finance law. Mm-hmm. And these are people that are bidding for the highest, most powerful position in the state as chief executive and governor. If they can't manage their campaigns, how are they going to manage an entire state? Yeah,
well, with Bedonie, and nice lady. I mean, I had her on, I think, in the early days of when people were starting to get their ducks in a row, whether they want to run or not. But you can't just flip parties like that. It's very insincere and not very genuine. Like, if you do want to flip parties and still run for office, take a beat, and have that change.
This looks like it's turned into a personal pride issue rather than an issue for the good of the state.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to, I have friends that are libertarian, I'm not discounting their party, but let's be realistic. I mean, in the primary election, there were 14,000 eligible libertarian voters that could have came out and vote in the primary for Karen Bedonie. Mm-hmm. She received 980 votes.
Yeah.
So there is no path to victory.
No.
Any vote for Karen Bedonie is a vote for MLG. Yeah. And at the end of the day, at least the conservative voters in the state want to make Michelle a one-term governor. Well, by supporting this candidate, we can't do that.
Well, I mean, that's just politics. We've seen this throughout the years, Brett, with a third-party candidate. And sometimes it helps Republicans, sometimes it hurts Republicans, depending on where the state is. You remember the old Green Party hurt Al Gore, Ralph Nader in some states. Ross Perot hurt George W. Bush, running as a third-party candidate, whether it was independent or libertarian. And here in New Mexico, with a libertarian candidate, yeah, you got to think that those are votes that are coming off the Republican candidate.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think, there are a group of independents that will say that they vote Democrat, a group that support Republicans and vote on the conservative side. I think this year you're going to see a majority of those disenfranchised members on both sides vote for something different. Yeah. We already know what Governor Grisham has done in her first 4 years. She's been very clear to tell us what she's planning to do in the next 4 years. And New Mexico, regardless of your party affiliation, has suffered consistently under this governor's unfair and failed policies.
Yeah. Now, Brett, were you down in Carlsbad this weekend when?
Brandon, I had my ticket. I wanted to go, but it was my birthday weekend, and I decided I deserved a little R&R for a day or two.
Well, good for you. I do want to ask you about this campaign. Just even in other campaigns that you've seen, while you've been involved in politics. Usually the heavy guns don't come out until after Labor Day, and that has not been the case here. And you look at MLG's campaign, I don't know if there's a real theme to it, on some of the TV ads, especially using her daughter and her husband that passed away. You want to see, they're showing the soft side of MLG. And then the rhetoric that we hear from this campaign and from her herself, talking about extremists and Mark Ronchetti's as the war on women.